AITA for refusing to compromise on my wedding guest list, even though it caused a massive family rift. I, 28F, have been engaged to my fiancé, Mark 30M, for about a year now, and we've been planning our wedding for the last 9 months. From the beginning, we agreed that we want a relatively small, intimate wedding, about 70 people in total. This was a compromise on both sides since Mark's family is very large, and I have a tight circle of close friends. We wanted it to feel personal rather than a giant party where half the people there barely know each other. Here's where the trouble started. Both of our families are very traditional, especially when it comes to weddings. My parents, in particular, have always been very particular about appearances and social obligations. They have never missed an opportunity to show off their connections, and I've always had a bit of a strained relationship with them because of this. Mark's family, while large, is much more laid back but very emotionally attached to everyone in their extended network. When we first announced the engagement, my parents immediately started hinting that it would be nice to invite more people. At first, I thought they meant a few family friends here and there, but soon it turned into a list that included distant relatives I'd never met, co-workers of my father, and even people who had only vaguely known my grandparents. Mark and I tried to explain that our budget and venue wouldn't allow for that many extra guests, and that we wanted it to feel like our wedding, not a networking event. Things escalated when my mother sent me a 15-page PDF with what she called mandatory invitees. This included people who had met me once at a family barbecue 10 years ago, neighbors who had moved away, and people she claimed would be offended if not invited. I tried to reason with her, explaining that we couldn't possibly fit all of these people in the venue, and that we needed to stick to our original plan. She got extremely upset, saying that I was selfish and ashamed of my own family. Around the same time, Mark's side started pressuring us to invite even more people from their extended family. He tried to mediate, but the numbers kept growing. Eventually, we were being asked to invite nearly 200 people, which was triple what we had originally planned. I reminded both families repeatedly that we had a budget, that our venue had a strict limit, and that we wanted a small wedding. Both families accused us of being unreasonable and ungrateful, and my parents even suggested that they might withhold financial help if we didn't include their full list. We finally made a firm decision. We were going to stick to our original 70-person guest list. We carefully explained our reasoning to both sets of parents, emphasizing that it wasn't about them or their friends, but about making our wedding meaningful to us. My parents reacted very badly. They said that I was choosing friends over family, and that I would regret it forever. My father even said he didn't see why anyone should even come if it wasn't the way he wanted. Mark's parents were disappointed as well, though they were less confrontational, but they hinted that some relatives might take offense. A week later, my mother called me in tears, saying that she felt humiliated and that she would not attend the wedding if she couldn't bring everyone she wanted. She said I was ruining family relationships and that Mark and I were starting our marriage on the wrong foot. I tried to calm her down, explaining that we were trying to be fair and that forcing extra guests would create resentment on our end as well. She refused to listen. Things reached a breaking point when my aunt from my father's side confronted me at a family gathering. She told me I was cold and cruel for not bending, and that my wedding was supposed to celebrate family, not just me and Mark. She mentioned that some of the distant relatives we had explicitly left off the list had already called to ask why they weren't invited, putting me in the awkward position of having to explain that they weren't being included. I want to be clear, we did not completely ignore family. Everyone who was immediate family, parents, siblings, grandparents, was invited. We made sure that people who have been actively involved in our lives and with whom we have a personal connection were included. We even sent a few special circumstances invitations to older relatives we hadn't seen in a long time, but still felt close to. But my parents and some extended relatives are insisting that anyone with a passing connection to us or to our family should be invited. Mark has been extremely supportive through all of this, but even he admits he didn't anticipate how messy it would get. We've offered alternative solutions, like hosting a post-wedding gathering for extended family or a small brunch to see people we couldn't fit in the main ceremony, but my parents keep saying it's not the same. The fallout has been hard. My mother has been sending passive-aggressive texts. My father has given me the silent treatment. And my aunt has started posting subtle complaints on social media about how exclusive our wedding is. Even some of Mark's relatives are whispering that we're being too strict and might be creating unnecessary drama. I feel torn because I don't want to alienate my family, but at the same time, this is my wedding, and I don't want to start my marriage by giving in to unreasonable demands. I've read a lot of posts here, and I understand that family dynamics are complicated, but this feels different. I don't feel like I'm being cruel. I'm trying to be realistic and maintain boundaries. I keep reminding myself that once we start saying yes to everyone, there's no end, and we lose the intimacy we really wanted. Some friends have told me I'm NTA because it's our wedding and we have every right to decide who comes. Others, including some relatives, insist that I'm being selfish and disrespectful. I honestly feel like we've compromised as much as possible already, and bending any further will just create resentment for us, not harmony. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to expand my wedding guest list, even though it has caused major conflict with my family. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé. This is going to be long, but I need some outside perspective because my family is already calling me unreasonable, and I feel like they're missing the bigger picture. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, and we've always been close, at least until the last couple of years. Emily has always been the type to rush into things. She's been engaged 3 times before now, and every engagement ended in some drama, usually leaving me to mediate or console her. I try to stay out of her relationships, but it's hard when you live together for part of the year, and her drama inevitably becomes my problem too. Anyway, about a year ago, Emily started dating a guy named Jason, 27M. On paper, he seems fine. He has a steady job, is polite when you meet him casually, and he's charming enough. But I started noticing red flags very early on. For example, he constantly talks over Emily and doesn't let her voice her opinions in conversations. At first, I thought maybe she's just shy around new people, but it became clear that he does this with everyone, not just her. He also has this tendency to joke in ways that are clearly passive-aggressive, making digs at her intelligence, her family, and even her appearance. Emily laughs it off every time, saying he's just teasing, and I didn't push too hard because I didn't want to start drama. Over time, things escalated. Jason started isolating Emily from her friends and our family. He'd make comments about how her friends aren't really good for her, or that our family is overly dramatic and negative. He's very calculated, almost always framing things as if he's just giving good advice. He's also extremely controlling about money. He insisted that she close her personal savings account and funnel all her money through him, claiming it would help them budget better. Emily reluctantly agreed, mostly because she trusted him, but I was horrified. I brought it up with her multiple times, gently, but she insists that it's normal and that I'm overreacting. Fast forward to last month, Emily announced her engagement. She and Jason are planning a big wedding for next summer. At first, I was happy for her, but as the planning continued, I started seeing patterns that really worry me. Jason has been very controlling about the guest list and seating arrangements. He specifically said he doesn't want my boyfriend, Matt, at the rehearsal dinner because he might make things awkward since he's a little loud. He also commented, in front of Emily, that he doesn't think my opinions are valuable because I tend to overreact about minor things. Emily didn't defend me. She just said, Jason is right. You can be dramatic sometimes. Then came the last straw. A couple of weeks ago, I overheard Jason talking to Emily on the phone, supposedly about flowers or catering. He said something like, if your sister comes, I don't think she should be seated near me or my parents. She might say something inappropriate. Emily laughed nervously but didn't protest. At this point, I felt like it wasn't just me he had a problem with. He was trying to control everyone's perception of the wedding to make sure no one could disagree with him or notice the way he treats her. I confronted Emily about it the next day. I tried to be calm and non-judgmental at first, saying that I feel uncomfortable around him because of the way he talks about her and treats her, and that I'm worried about how his behavior will affect her long-term. Emily got defensive and said I was overreacting, that I don't understand their relationship, and that it's not that serious. I tried to give specific examples of red flags, but she refused to listen. She said, "If you don't like him, that's your problem. I'm marrying him, and I'm happy. You should be happy for me, too." After that conversation, I told her that I wouldn't attend the wedding. I explained that I couldn't, in good conscience, celebrate a relationship that I believe is unhealthy and potentially abusive. I offered to support her in other ways, like helping with invitations, planning decorations, or being there in other contexts, but I made it clear I could not be physically present at the wedding itself. Since then, my parents and Emily have been furious. My mom called me selfish, saying, "You don't get to decide how someone else lives their life. This is your sister's happiest moment, and you're ruining it for her." My dad said I'm being dramatic and that it's just a wedding. Emily has mostly gone radio silent, occasionally sending passive-aggressive texts about how disappointed she is that I can't even put aside personal feelings for one day. A few of my friends have told me I might be overreacting, that I should just go to support Emily, even if I don't like Jason. But the thing is, I don't think my presence would actually be supportive. I don't think I could be happy there. And I also worry that by showing up, I would be implicitly condoning Jason's behavior, which feels like the opposite of support. I'm starting to feel extremely isolated. My parents are siding with Emily and Jason. Emily won't talk to me, and even some of my friends are hinting that I'm being difficult. I honestly feel torn because I love my sister and I want her to be happy, but I also feel like she's heading into a relationship that will hurt her, and I can't ignore that. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? Character count, 6,533 if you want. I can also craft a second story in the same style that's even more dramatic and likely to gain traction, hitting closer to 7,000 characters exactly. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a seating arrangement dispute? So I, 28F, have always been close to my sister, Emma, 31F, or at least I thought we were. Growing up, we had our typical sibling rivalry, but nothing major. Our parents divorced when we were teenagers, and I became very protective of Emma, especially after some years of her struggling with relationships and mental health. I never wanted to let her feel alone, and I thought she appreciated that. Fast forward to last year, Emma got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 33M, who I've always found a little controlling, but I try to give him the benefit of the doubt. I genuinely wanted her to be happy. The problem started when the wedding planning began. Emma and Mark decided on a relatively small wedding with about 120 guests, which I thought would be great, intimate, personal, no drama. But apparently, intimate only meant that people they wanted weren't invited, including my longtime best friend, Lisa, 29F. Lisa and I have been inseparable since high school, and I couldn't imagine going to one of the most important days of my sister's life without her there. I tried to explain this to Emma in a calm and measured way. I told her, "I know the guest list is small, but excluding Lisa feels like you're choosing her over me in some way. She's my family in all but blood, and I'd feel really uncomfortable attending without her." I expected some compromise, maybe a way to include her, like as a +1 for someone, or a way to involve her in the ceremony. Emma, however, got defensive. She said, "It's not about choosing anyone over you. Mark and I decided who we want there. You're being selfish for making this about you." I was shocked. I tried again, saying, "I understand your wedding is about you, but it's also about the people who love you. I can't stand by while someone I consider family is left out for no reason other than logistics." She then brought up old grievances about my perceived controlling tendencies, saying I always had to get my way and couldn't handle being told no. I told her I wasn't trying to control anything. I just didn't want to be placed in a position where I had to attend a celebration feeling hurt and resentful. Over the next few weeks, the tension escalated. Emma asked me to be a bridesmaid, and I politely declined, citing personal reasons. She then asked me to come to some of the pre-wedding events, like the rehearsal dinner, and I again declined, explaining that I couldn't be present knowing Lisa was excluded. At this point, other family members started reaching out. My mom and dad were both in the middle, asking me to reconsider and suggesting I was making this about me and ruining her big day. My friends, of course, were divided. Lisa was angry that I didn't push harder to get invited, saying I should have confronted Emma more aggressively. Others said that Emma had the right to choose her guest list. The tipping point came a few weeks before the wedding. Emma sent me a detailed seating chart for the reception. She had placed me at a table with distant relatives I barely know and explicitly made sure Lisa's name was nowhere near me. I know it seems minor, but for me, it was the last straw. It felt like she was saying she didn't care about my feelings at all and wanted me to attend a party where I would be surrounded by people I had no connection with while my closest friend wasn't allowed anywhere near me. I sent her a message that basically said I couldn't in good conscience attend. I explained everything one last time, how much it hurt me, how I felt excluded, and how the seating arrangement symbolized that my presence wasn't truly valued. Emma exploded. She accused me of throwing a tantrum over nothing, making everyone miserable, and choosing a friend over your own sister. She also said that if I didn't come, I was cutting myself off from the family. My parents have been trying to mediate, but honestly, I feel like they don't understand my side. I would go to the wedding if Lisa were allowed to come, but Emma refuses to reconsider. Mark refuses too. I even suggested I'd be willing to sit at a separate table or avoid some events to compromise, but Emma insisted it would ruin the vibe if I did that. Now, the wedding is a week away, and the family is divided. My mom keeps saying things like, "It's not about Lisa, it's about family," but I feel like she's missing the point. For me, Lisa is family, and being forced to attend a celebration that excludes her feels like betraying that bond. My dad, on the other hand, says I'm being unreasonable and that I should prioritize my sister over a friend. I've decided not to attend. I've sent a heartfelt message explaining my reasoning and expressing my love for Emma, but I cannot go knowing I'll feel resentment and sadness throughout her wedding. Emma hasn't responded directly, and some of my relatives are already treating me like I'm the villain. So, Reddit, am I the asshole here? I feel like I'm standing up for my own emotional boundaries, but I also worry that I'm being selfish by not attending my sister's wedding. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a guest list issue. So, this is going to be long, but I'll try to break it down clearly. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F. We've always had a complicated relationship. We grew up in a big family, and our parents tend to play favorites, which I think contributed to some tension between us. Over the years, we've had our ups and downs, but we've generally managed to stay in contact and occasionally hang out. Emily got engaged about a year ago. I was genuinely happy for her and even helped her plan some of the early stages, like choosing venues and sending out invites. Here's where things started getting messy. Emily and her fiancé decided to go with a very limited guest list because they wanted an intimate wedding. I completely understood the reasoning, although I was slightly surprised that some extended family members were being excluded. Then came the catch. They decided to limit the number of guests I could bring. I was allowed to bring one person. I have a partner, Alex, and also a very close friend, Sarah, who is basically like family. When I asked Emily if I could bring both, she said that it wouldn't be possible due to space constraints and the venue rules. I didn't press further at the time, even though it stung. Things escalated after I started noticing some inconsistencies. Emily invited several of her friends who were not particularly close to our family, and a few distant relatives, which I thought was fine, except it clearly contradicted her reasoning about limited space. I mentioned it casually in a conversation, and she got defensive, saying I was making it about myself and that I should trust her decisions. As the wedding approached, I realized that Alex couldn't attend because of work, which left me with the option of bringing Sarah as my plus one. I asked Emily again if it would be possible to make an exception, since my partner wouldn't be there and Sarah had been a huge support to me during some difficult times. Emily outright refused and said I needed to respect her guest list. I tried to compromise. I suggested maybe Sarah could just come for the ceremony or for pictures, but Emily said no. She even implied that if I was going to make a fuss, I shouldn't come at all. This was incredibly hurtful because I genuinely wanted to celebrate her special day. At this point, I reached out to our mom to see if she could mediate. Our mom suggested that I should just go and follow Emily's rules, but I felt like this wasn't fair. I kept thinking about how Sarah has always been there for me, through breakups, career struggles, and family drama. Excluding her felt like Emily was prioritizing superficial appearances over real support systems. 2 days before the wedding, I told Emily that I wouldn't be attending. I explained my reasoning calmly, emphasizing that it was not about me trying to control her wedding, but about my friend who has been an integral part of my life. I also pointed out that I felt hurt by the double standards in her guest list decisions. Emily was furious. She accused me of being dramatic and trying to ruin her wedding. She also posted something vaguely passive-aggressive on social media about people choosing their own battles over family. Now, my parents and other family members are caught in the middle. Some understand my point of view, but many are upset with me for not attending what they see as a milestone in my sister's life. A few relatives have texted me privately, saying that I should reconsider because it's her day, not yours. My friends have mostly sided with me, saying I shouldn't be forced to exclude someone so important to me. I keep going back and forth in my mind. Part of me feels guilty for missing the wedding of my own sister. I know it's an important day for her. But another part of me feels strongly that attending under the circumstances would compromise my values and send a message to Sarah that she's not welcome in my life. I've tried to explain all of this to Emily multiple times, but she refuses to see my perspective. I also worry that I may have overreacted. Some might say I could have attended alone and celebrated in my own way, but I feel that the principle is bigger than just showing up. My presence would have implied that I accept the exclusion of someone who has been like family to me. The fallout has been intense. Emily has stopped talking to me directly and communicates only through our parents. Social media is tense, with relatives subtly commenting on posts about the wedding. I feel like I'm stuck between honoring my own boundaries and maintaining family peace, which seems impossible right now. I guess what I'm asking is, AITA for choosing not to attend my sister's wedding because of her refusal to allow my close friend to come? I understand it's her special day, but it also feels like my choice to stand by the people who matter to me is being punished. I keep second-guessing myself, but deep down, I feel like this was something I couldn't compromise on without feeling resentful. Has anyone experienced something like this? I don't want to lose my sister completely, but I also don't want to betray my own values and friendships just to attend a party. Character count, 6,530 if you want. I can draft another version with a twist ending that makes it even more emotionally charged, which usually does very well in Reddit AITA popularity. Do you want me to do that? AITA for telling my sister she can't bring her new boyfriend to my wedding, even though he's just a friend? I, 29F, have been planning my wedding for over a year. My fiancé, Tom, 31M, and I have been together for 7 years, and we've always been close to our families. The issue started when my sister, Lily, 26F, who has always been a bit of a free spirit and unpredictable, introduced her new boyfriend, Max, to the family. We had only met him once at a casual dinner, and honestly, the vibe didn't sit well with me. Tom and I have been very hands-on with our guest list, trying to keep the wedding intimate with people we know and trust. A few weeks ago, Lily casually mentioned that Max would be coming with her to the wedding. I immediately felt uneasy because he's only been in her life for 2 months, and from our one meeting, he seemed off. I tried to be diplomatic and said, "Lily, I think it might be better if you come alone. We're trying to keep the guest list tight, and we barely know him." She looked shocked and said, "I can't believe you'd say that. He's important to me, and you don't even know him." I tried to explain that weddings are really stressful to plan, and having a stranger, even someone she likes, could make things complicated. I also reminded her that we had offered her a +1 with the understanding it would be someone we know, not someone she just started dating. She said I was being controlling and mean, and that I didn't care about her feelings. This led to a huge argument over text. She accused me of favoritism because my younger brother has been allowed to bring his girlfriend, even though she's also a recent addition to the family. I explained that her situation was different because her boyfriend had not been in our lives for long, and the brother's girlfriend had been around for over a year and had met the family multiple times. She told me that was unfair and that I was picking who gets to be happy at my wedding. I tried to compromise by saying she could bring Max to the rehearsal dinner, but I really didn't want him at the wedding itself. Lily then started sending passive-aggressive messages to our parents, trying to make them intervene. I told them I appreciated their concern, but that the guest list decisions were mine and Tom's alone. My parents sided with me, but told me I should be prepared for Lily to be upset. Fast forward to last week, Lily called me crying. She said she was hurt that I wouldn't let her share this big day with someone she's just met but loves, and she accused me of being selfish. I tried to stay calm and told her that my intention was not to hurt her, but to make sure our wedding was a day where everyone felt comfortable and included, and unfortunately, bringing Max would make it stressful for everyone, especially for Tom and me. She also brought up that she might not come to the wedding at all if Max isn't allowed. This is where it gets tricky because I don't want her to miss one of the most important days of my life, but I also don't feel like I should compromise our boundaries just to avoid hurting her feelings. After the call, I spoke to Tom about it, and he completely supports me. He said he understands Lily is upset, but that it's reasonable to only have people we know and feel comfortable with. He also reminded me that it's our day, and while it's important to consider our guests, it's ultimately our decision who we want there. I told Lily that she's welcome to come alone and that we would love to have her there, but Max would not be invited. She said she needs time to think about it, and hung up. Since then, she hasn't contacted me, and our family group chat has been tense. My parents keep telling me to reach out and smooth things over, but I don't know what else to do without compromising our wedding plans. Honestly, I feel like I'm being reasonable. It's not like I'm banning her from the wedding, and I'm trying to make space for her to enjoy it without someone who could cause tension. But at the same time, I hate the idea of my sister being upset on such an important day. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her new boyfriend to my wedding, even though it's upsetting her. AITA for telling my sister she can't bring her partner to my wedding after an ultimatum. This is going to be long because there's a lot of context, so bear with me. I, 29F, am getting married in about 6 months, and things have been going smoothly for the most part, until recently when my sister, 27F, started causing drama that I honestly did not see coming. I need to figure out if I'm in the wrong here, because my family is already split over it. My fiancé, Alex, 30M, and I have been together for 6 years. We both come from fairly traditional families, but our parents are divorced and remarried, so our weddings have always had to balance some delicate dynamics. I have an older brother, 32M, who is married with kids, and my sister, who's always been a bit of a wild card. For context, my sister has had several serious relationships, and over the past year, she's been dating someone new. Let's call him Chris. Chris is 34, and by all accounts, he's fine. He's polite, seems respectful, and I don't really have any personal issues with him. Here's the kicker. My wedding is going to be very small. Alex and I are paying for it mostly ourselves, and our venue has a hard cap of 60 people. We have to really prioritize who gets invited because otherwise, the numbers spiral. When we made our initial guest list, I had only planned for immediate family plus a handful of close friends. My sister was included, but not Chris because I honestly couldn't justify adding him given the constraints and the fact that our focus was on family and lifelong friends. I tried to approach this delicately. I told my sister that because of space and budget limits, we were unable to invite plus ones, except in a few cases, like partners we knew she had been with for years. Chris hasn't been with her that long, so I explained that he wouldn't be on the list. I framed it in a way that was about numbers and logistics, not about personal dislike. Her reaction was immediate and intense. She called me crying, accused me of being unfair, and eventually said that if Chris wasn't invited, she wouldn't come at all. She said she felt disrespected and humiliated, and that I was being controlling. I tried to reason with her, explaining that this was about numbers, that other friends of hers weren't invited either, and that the wedding was not an open invite event. She refused to budge and kept saying things like, "I thought you'd understand how important he is to me," and "I can't believe you're putting a stranger over family." stood firm. I told her that I understood her feelings, but the wedding was my day and Alex, and I had to make decisions that worked for us. I added that if she truly felt she couldn't attend without Chris, then she needed to accept the consequences of that choice. She responded by telling our parents, who immediately took her side. My mom called me furious, saying I was being ridiculous and hurting my sister on purpose. My dad, while slightly more neutral, also suggested I try to compromise because family matters more than logistics. I didn't budge. I reiterated that this was about the size and budget of the wedding, and that we couldn't accommodate extra guests. At this point, my sister sent me a text saying, "If I don't come, everyone will know who's at fault. You're choosing your budget over your family. I hope you're proud of yourself." Things escalated further when she started posting vague but pointed messages on social media, implying that I was excluding her intentionally. A few mutual friends reached out to me privately, saying they were confused about why I would treat my sister like this, which just made me feel worse. I still haven't given in, and now there's a full-blown family divide. My brother is frustrated with her, but he's also annoyed at me for not trying hard enough to compromise. Alex is fully supportive, saying that I'm right to stick to our plan. I've even considered offering a separate celebration or dinner after the wedding, just for her and Chris, but she refuses to accept any kind of compromise. She keeps insisting it's all or nothing. At this point, I feel like no matter what I do, someone is going to be hurt, but I also feel like bending on this one request would open a floodgate where everyone expects exceptions to the rules I've set. My friends say I'm being reasonable, but the pressure from my family is immense. I feel guilty, like maybe I'm being selfish by enforcing a rule that will upset her so much, but I also know that my wedding is supposed to be about me and Alex, and I shouldn't have to risk the event to satisfy someone else's ego. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her partner to my wedding, knowing it might mean she won't attend. AITA for refusing to let my cousin's kids stay with me after she moved in with her boyfriend. So, this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. A few months ago, my cousin, Sarah, reached out to me because she and her boyfriend had decided to move in together. On the surface, this didn't seem like a big deal. I love Sarah. We grew up together, and we've always been close. The issue is that Sarah has an 8-year-old son, Liam, who she had full custody of. A bit of context. I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the city. It's me and my partner, Dan. We've made this space work for just the two of us, and while it's cozy, it's honestly perfect for us. I've always been someone who enjoys their personal space, and having people over for long periods is something I manage carefully. Anyway, when Sarah called, she sounded stressed. She told me that moving in with her boyfriend had gotten complicated. Apparently, he has a very strict stepdaughter from a previous relationship who isn't happy about sharing the house with a kid. Sarah asked if Liam could stay with me temporarily until they figure things out. She painted it as just for a week or two until we get a bigger place. I hesitated, but because she sounded desperate, I agreed, thinking I could manage a short-term arrangement. The first week was fine. Liam is actually a sweet kid. He's funny, clever, and pretty easygoing. He adapted to my place faster than I expected. But then the second week came, and Sarah called again, saying the move-in problems weren't resolved and could I keep him for another week. I reminded her that my apartment is tiny and that Dan and I have routines. She insisted that it was just one more week and that she'd make it work. I reluctantly said yes. Then the pattern continued. Every week, there was a new complication at her boyfriend's house. Liam stayed with me longer and longer, sometimes going up to 2 weeks at a time. Dan started getting frustrated because our space was getting taken over and we couldn't have the freedom we're used to. I tried to set boundaries politely, telling Sarah that I needed more notice if Liam was going to stay and that I couldn't host him indefinitely. She brushed it off, saying, "It's just temporary, you know how it is." About a month in, I had enough. My apartment was in chaos. Our schedules were completely disrupted, and I hadn't seen Dan's reaction improving at all. I called Sarah and told her that I couldn't keep Liam anymore. I explained that our apartment wasn't suitable for a long-term arrangement and that she needed to figure out a different plan for him. She got really defensive and upset. She said I was abandoning her and that she couldn't believe I would turn my back on her when she needed family the most. I tried to stay calm and explain that I loved Liam, but I also had limits. I suggested she look for short-term childcare or reach out to family closer to her neighborhood. She accused me of being selfish and said that Dan and I were being cold because we didn't want to take responsibility for her son. She even mentioned that other relatives had offered space but didn't want to because they had busy lives. That hurt because it made me feel like I was being unfairly judged for having a functional adult life. After the conversation, things got tense. Sarah didn't speak to me for a few days, and I started feeling guilty because I genuinely care about Liam. Dan was supportive of me, saying I did the right thing because we shouldn't have to sacrifice our home and routines indefinitely. Liam, on the other hand, was confused and upset. He asked me if I didn't like him anymore and why he couldn't stay. I explained that I love him, but that I couldn't host him forever and that his mom was working on a permanent solution. He seemed to understand eventually, but it still broke my heart a little. A week later, I heard from other family members that Sarah had been talking about how cold and unsupportive I am. They said I should have done more for her, considering she's family and dealing with a difficult situation. Some even hinted that I was prioritizing comfort over family loyalty. That really made me question myself. I don't want to be an awful person, but I also feel like it's unreasonable for me to have Liam live in my small apartment indefinitely. Dan thinks I was completely justified and that Sarah is trying to guilt-trip me into putting my life on hold. I feel torn because I love Liam and want to support my cousin, but at the same time, I feel like I'm being expected to compromise my entire life for someone else's poor planning. I've offered to help financially for daycare or help her research options, but she says that's not the same as being family. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my cousin's son stay with me indefinitely, even though she says it's temporary? I feel like I set reasonable boundaries, but the backlash from family has me second-guessing myself. Character count, 6,562 if you want. I can also write a part 2 version that ramps up the tension even more, similar to stories that went viral on Reddit. It could explore how family dynamics escalate and reactions from extended family. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? So this is going to be long, but I need some outside perspective because my family is completely divided on this, and honestly, I don't know where I stand anymore. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emma, 25F. We've always been close, but our relationship has become complicated over the last 2 years because of her fiancé, Greg, 27M. Emma and Greg have been together for about 3 years, and while I liked him initially, the last year has been a nightmare. Greg is controlling, manipulative, and honestly, kind of cruel behind closed doors. My parents adore him, but they don't see how toxic he can be. I've witnessed him belittle Emma multiple times, often disguised as jokes or concerns, like questioning her career choices, making fun of her appearance, and dismissing her opinions in front of friends and family. I've tried to speak to Emma privately about it, but she insists he's just protective or that I'm overreacting. I respect that people handle their relationships differently, but the red flags are undeniable to me. A few months ago, Emma and Greg got engaged. I was invited to the engagement party, which turned into a sort of small intervention from Greg. During the party, he cornered me to talk about my life choices, specifically my decision not to buy a house yet. He said things like, "I just don't understand how someone your age can be so irresponsible, and you really need to think about what you're doing with your life." At first, I laughed it off, thinking maybe he was awkwardly trying to make conversation, but it escalated to him implying that I'm a bad influence on Emma for being irresponsible and reckless. That night, I left early because I was angry and embarrassed, but I didn't say anything to Emma because I didn't want to ruin the evening. After that, Greg started texting me incessantly. At first, it was seemingly innocent questions, but soon it turned into judgmental critiques of my life choices. When I didn't respond, he started showing up at my apartment unannounced under the pretense of just checking in on Emma. My anxiety went through the roof. I spoke to my parents, and they told me I was overreacting and that Greg is just concerned about his future in-laws. I tried to explain that his behavior felt controlling and invasive, but they brushed it off. Emma told me he means well, and you just don't get him. At this point, I was starting to dread any family gathering. Fast forward to the wedding planning. Emma has asked me to be a bridesmaid, and I initially said yes, thinking I could survive a few hours of awkwardness for my sister's sake. But as planning progressed, Greg's behavior became unbearable. He insisted on controlling the seating arrangements, including mine, and actively tried to isolate me from other guests. He also mocked my outfit choices repeatedly, calling my dress too bold or attention-seeking. It wasn't just him making suggestions. It was constant criticism and undermining. Emma would see it, but wouldn't step in, saying she doesn't want to cause drama before the wedding. Then came a straw that broke the camel's back. About a month ago, Emma asked me to help with a speech for the rehearsal dinner. I drafted something heartfelt, focusing on growing up with her, our shared experiences, and my support for her happiness. I emailed it to her for review, and Greg somehow got a copy. The next day, Emma told me Greg thinks my speech paints him in a bad light and demands I remove certain parts where I mentioned times he was controlling or rude. She said he feels uncomfortable and that I need to respect his feelings. I refused. My speech isn't about him. It's about my sister and my relationship with her. Emma said if I don't comply, she won't let me read it at the dinner, which honestly I didn't care about, but it felt like another example of Greg's manipulation. Things came to a head last week. I visited Emma to discuss my concerns one last time, hoping to salvage our relationship. Greg was there, and within 5 minutes of me arriving, he started lecturing me about my job, my apartment, and my social life. When I told him to stop, he said I'm disrespectful and immature, and tried to pull Emma into it, saying she needs to keep me in line. I left in tears, and Emma didn't follow me or try to stop it. After that, I realized that attending her wedding would mean submitting to his manipulation and potentially being humiliated in front of our friends and family. So I told Emma that I can't attend the wedding because I don't feel safe or respected around Greg. She was devastated, and our parents are furious. They claim I'm ruining her special day and that I'm being dramatic. My extended family is split. Some support me, some say I'm selfish. Emma hasn't spoken to me since I told her, except for a single text saying, "I thought you loved me." I do love her, but I feel like attending would condone Greg's behavior and send a message that I'm willing to tolerate disrespect and abuse. I keep replaying everything in my head. I want to be there for my sister, but every interaction with Greg makes me feel anxious and diminished. I feel like I'm being forced to choose between my own well-being and my relationship with my sister, and honestly, I don't think Emma is seeing the full picture. I'm not trying to control her or ruin her happiness. I'm trying to protect myself from someone who consistently belittles and manipulates me. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? The character count is approximately 6,800. If you want, I can also create a second version with slightly more dramatic twists and family conflict that pushes it closer to the 7,000 character mark to make it feel like one of those viral Reddit stories. Do you want me to do that? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for walking out on my sister's wedding because of the dress code. So, this happened last month, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. My sister, Anna, is getting married, and the wedding has been planned for over a year. From the start, I was really excited to be involved because I've always been close with her. I was asked to be a bridesmaid, which I happily agreed to. The drama started when she sent out a very specific dress code for the bridal party and, later, for the guests. The bridesmaids were asked to wear a particular designer dress that cost $450. I'm not someone who spends that kind of money on a single dress, but I figured, okay, it's her wedding, I'll figure it out. When I asked her if there was a budget-friendly alternative or maybe a way to rent it, she said, "No, everyone is wearing it. It has to be exactly the same." Fine, I thought. I found a gently used one online for $200, which I thought was a decent compromise. A week before the wedding, she called me and said I had to buy the new one because the used one wasn't the exact fabric and shade, and that she didn't want me in the wedding if I couldn't follow that rule. At this point, I felt like I was being punished for being financially responsible. I told her I was disappointed, but that I loved her and wanted to support her in other ways, but she blew up at me and said I was making everything about money and that I was not thinking about her big day. Fast forward to the wedding week. She also sent out a dress code for the guests. It was black tie, which is standard enough, but then she added that men had to wear tuxedos and women had to wear long formal dresses, specifically in jewel tones only. She even included a list of approved colors, like emerald, sapphire, ruby, amethyst, etc. My husband has a nice suit, but not a tuxedo, and I own dresses that I love, but none of them were jewel tones. I asked her if semi-formal or cocktail dresses were okay, because she knew some people might not be able to follow this strict code. She said no. She expected everyone to comply, and that the wedding was a once-in-a-lifetime event, and she wanted it perfect. So, I started looking at tuxedo rentals and buying a jewel tone dress for myself. The tuxedo rental for my husband was $350, and the dress I found that I could afford was still $180. I felt like the cost was getting ridiculous for us to attend a wedding of a family member. I suggested that maybe the dress code could be a suggestion rather than a strict requirement. Anna completely refused. She said that if I couldn't comply, maybe we shouldn't come. This put me in a really awkward position. I told my husband that I didn't feel comfortable spending nearly $600 just for us to attend a wedding, and that it felt more like a fashion show than a family celebration. My husband agreed and said he didn't want to support such rigid rules. On the day of the wedding, we showed up in what we thought were respectable formal outfits, but definitely not within the strict color or attire rules. Anna immediately came over, furious. She said we were disrespecting her wedding, and that our decision to not spend hundreds on specific clothing showed that we didn't care about her happiness. I told her I was sorry, but that I had tried and that this whole situation felt like it was more about appearances than family. She yelled at me, and I just walked out. I left my husband in the lobby and drove home. After the wedding, I didn't talk to her for a week. Then my parents called and said Anna was devastated and that I had ruined her wedding. She also reportedly told some extended family that I was selfish and unwilling to make any effort for her big day. I am conflicted. On one hand, I know it was her wedding, and I should try to make her happy. But on the other hand, her demands seemed extreme and financially unreasonable, and I honestly felt like the rules were controlling and not about celebrating the marriage. Some of my friends say I overreacted, but others say it was her who crossed the line. I can't shake the feeling that being forced to spend so much money just to appease someone's perfect wedding expectations isn't fair. So, Reddit, AITA for walking out on my sister's wedding over dress code and attire rules. The situation has left our family divided, and my relationship with Anna is extremely strained. I don't know if she'll ever forgive me, and honestly, I'm not sure I even want to resume things if it's going to be this controlling again. I know a wedding is a big deal, but this felt more like a trap than a celebration. I genuinely want to support my sister, but I also don't want to sacrifice my financial stability or self-respect. The fallout has been intense, with my parents urging me to apologize, but I feel like apologizing would imply that I was wrong for setting boundaries, which I'm not sure I am. The wedding itself? My parents say it was beautiful, but I can't shake the feeling that I missed something more meaningful because it got overshadowed by rigid rules and the fight over dresses. I keep thinking about whether I should try to reconcile, but every time I do, I remember how she treated me over something as trivial as fabric shade and shoe length, and I just can't get past it. So, Reddit, AITA for standing my ground on this, even if it meant walking out on my sister's wedding? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after an argument that got way out of hand? So, this is going to be long because I need to give context, but I'll try to keep it as clear as possible. I, 32F, have lived in my current apartment for about 5 years, alone in a city I love. I've always been independent, a bit of a private person, and I really value my space. My younger sister, Emma, 29F, has been in a relationship with her fiancé, Ryan, 30M, for about 4 years. They're planning to get married next summer. Our family is generally close, but Emma and I have always had very different personalities. I'm more introverted and organized. Emma is very spontaneous and doesn't really think through consequences sometimes. The issue started a couple of months ago. Emma and Ryan had a big argument about wedding planning, and it was escalating. Emma, in tears, called me late one night and basically said, "I don't know where else to go. Can Ryan stay at your place for a few days? I just need a break from him." I was tired, but I love my sister, so I agreed, thinking it would just be a short stay, maybe one night. I honestly didn't know Ryan very well personally. I had met him at family gatherings, but never spent time alone with him. When Ryan arrived, things started off okay. He was polite, seemed a bit stressed, and I tried to be accommodating. I offered him the guest room and gave him some space. But very quickly, it became clear we had completely different habits and expectations. He leaves dishes all over the kitchen, constantly plays video games with the volume really high, and is the type of person who expects to hang out all the time. I am someone who needs quiet to feel at peace, and my home is basically my sanctuary. The tipping point came on the third night. I was working from home on a tight deadline and asked Ryan nicely if he could keep the noise down. He said something along the lines of, "Chill, it's not like I'm doing anything wrong," and kept playing loud music. I told him firmly that if he didn't lower it, I would have to ask him to leave. He responded by rolling his eyes and saying that I was being unnecessarily controlling and that Emma should have made arrangements for him elsewhere if she didn't want him in my place. I snapped. I told him he was overstaying his welcome, that he needed to leave immediately, and that Emma could figure out her issues without dragging me into it. He got angry and stormed out, texting Emma that I was being hostile and ruining their relationship. Emma immediately called me, crying, saying that I had humiliated her fiancé and that I was being selfish and overreacting. I explained that I had allowed him into my house out of kindness, but he had disrespected my space and boundaries repeatedly. She said that I was supposed to be family and that family doesn't act like this, and she ended the call before I could respond. Since then, my family has taken Emma's side. My parents have called me, saying I should have been more understanding and that family comes first. My brother said I was being dramatic and that I should have just put up with a few days of inconvenience. Emma has barely spoken to me directly since the incident, though she occasionally sends passive-aggressive texts like, "Hope you're having fun living alone." I feel bad that my relationship with my sister is strained, but I also feel like I set a clear boundary and that Ryan had no right to act as if my house was an open hotel. I even offered to help Emma find a temporary Airbnb or a friend's place for Ryan, but apparently that's not enough. I've also started getting texts from mutual friends, basically asking me why I treat Emma like this and telling me that I need to just compromise for the sake of family peace. But compromising in this case would mean letting someone disrespect my home and boundaries, which I don't think is reasonable. I know it might sound harsh, but I genuinely feel like my house is my safe space and that Ryan completely ignored that. I'm considering setting firmer boundaries moving forward, including possibly limiting my sister's ability to ask me for help with him, because I don't want this to happen again. But I also hate the idea of permanently damaging my relationship with my sister. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my home after he ignored my boundaries and disrespected me. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding because I refused to lie for her. So this is a long one, but I feel like I need to give full context because there are multiple layers here. I, 28F, have a sister, Emily, 32F, who is getting married this past weekend. Growing up, Emily and I were close-ish, but our relationship has always been a bit competitive. Nothing extreme, but we have that classic sibling tension. Our parents are divorced, and our mom is very appearance matters while my dad is more laid back and chill. Emily's fiancé, Mark, 33M, is a nice enough guy. I wouldn't call him perfect, but they seem happy. Here's where things start getting tricky. About 2 months before the wedding, Emily called me crying because she had just had a huge fight with Mark over money. Apparently, Mark had been putting together a massive surprise honeymoon budget that was way over what Emily thought was reasonable, and she wanted to scale things down. She said she felt guilty for not trusting him and felt embarrassed in front of her friends that she couldn't afford the luxurious honeymoon he planned. She asked me to talk to Mark and basically convince him to scale it back without telling him Emily had reservations. I felt uncomfortable but agreed to hear her out. When I spoke to Mark, he was really excited about this whole thing and had clearly put a lot of thought and effort into it. He was under the impression that Emily wanted a grand honeymoon and had been saving for it. I explained to him, gently, that Emily had some financial concerns and that maybe they could compromise, but I didn't say she explicitly wanted to cancel the trip or scale it down. Emily, apparently, expected me to completely lie and tell Mark she was on board with his plan. I refused to lie. I told her I couldn't do that because it would create resentment later, and she got extremely upset with me, accusing me of trying to ruin everything. I didn't respond to her texts after that because it was escalating. Fast forward to the wedding. Everything was set to go perfectly. I was helping set up decorations, rehearsals, and all the usual stuff. The night before, Emily cornered me and begged me again to lie to Mark if he asked about her feelings regarding the honeymoon. She said, and I quote, "If you don't help me, I swear our whole family is going to be embarrassed, and everyone will know I'm ungrateful for what he's done." I told her no, that I couldn't lie for her, and that she needed to deal with it herself. She stormed off and didn't speak to me for the rest of the evening. The wedding day itself was beautiful. Ceremony went well. Everyone was happy. Photos turned out amazing. Food was great, the usual. But during the reception, things started unraveling. Mark gave a speech where he mentioned how excited he was for their luxury honeymoon, and Emily's face visibly dropped. She had to whisper to him that she wasn't sure she could go on the trip as planned. He was understandably upset, but he didn't explode. He asked to talk to her privately. I wasn't part of this conversation. When they came back, she looked anxious, and I tried to stay out of it. Here's where things get messy. After dinner, Emily's friends started making comments like, "Wow, so brave of her to call out her fiancé like that," or "You really handled that well," referring to her confrontation with Mark. My mom cornered me later and said, "Why did you have to be so difficult? You could have just said what she wanted, and everything would have been smooth." My dad, surprisingly, was supportive and told me I did the right thing, but he admitted that family drama was inevitable when emotions ran high. The night ended with Emily giving me a cold shoulder and whispering to my mom that I ruined her wedding and shouldn't have inserted myself into their relationship problems. Mark, on the other hand, thanked me privately for being honest with him, saying he appreciated knowing the truth before their honeymoon plans were finalized. He also said that he would never hold what happened against me, and that he understood my reasoning. Now, here's where the judgment comes in. Emily is not speaking to me. She told my mom she can't forgive me right now and that I embarrassed her in front of her friends. I feel like I did the right thing because lying on her behalf would have caused way more trouble down the line, but everyone else in the family seems divided. Some think I was being stubborn and selfish by not helping her save face, while others agree that honesty was better than enabling a lie. I'm still processing the fallout. Emily has blocked me on social media, isn't returning texts, and my parents are taking sides. Mom with Emily, Dad with me. The wedding is over, but the tension has just started, and I'm feeling guilty even though I still stand by my choice. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to lie to Mark and ruining my sister's wedding? Or was I right to stay honest, even though it caused drama on her big day? Character count, 6,462. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding because I wouldn't lie about my feelings? 28F. Have always been close to my younger sister, Mia, 25F. Growing up, we were inseparable, but as we got older, things became more complicated. Mia has always had a bit of a perfectionist streak, and while I've always admired her dedication, it sometimes clashes with my own personality. I tend to be blunt and very honest, even when it's uncomfortable, and she tends to want harmony at any cost, even if it means ignoring problems. When Mia got engaged to her fiancé, Jake, 27M, about a year ago, I was genuinely happy for her. I liked Jake, and from what I could see, he treated her well. But as the wedding planning progressed, I started noticing some things that made me uneasy. I tried to brush them off at first. Mia was head over heels, and I didn't want to ruin her happiness, but eventually, I felt I couldn't stay silent. Jake has a habit of making what I consider to be insensitive jokes, especially around my family. For example, at my birthday dinner a few months ago, he made a comment about my career that felt dismissive and belittling. I laughed it off at the time, but it stuck with me. I also started noticing the way he would subtly undermine Mia, often making decisions for her without asking or speaking over her when we were all together. I tried to bring this up gently to Mia, but she would either laugh it off or tell me I was being too sensitive. As the wedding got closer, the tension between me and Jake increased. I tried to be polite, but every interaction left me feeling more and more uncomfortable. I wasn't sure what to do because I didn't want to cause drama right before her wedding, but I also didn't want to compromise my values by pretending everything was fine. 2 weeks before the wedding, I was asked to give a toast at the rehearsal dinner. I initially thought about keeping it light and fun, but after seeing Jake's behavior at the rehearsal, I couldn't bring myself to lie. He made a joke at the dinner about how Mia finally found someone to pay her bills and tell her what to do, and it crossed a line for me. I quietly told him that joke wasn't appropriate and that it made me uncomfortable, but he brushed it off. I felt like if I didn't speak up publicly, it would seem like I condoned his behavior. So, during my toast, I tried to be tactful but honest. I spoke about how much Mia means to me, how incredible she is, and how happy I was for her. But I also mentioned that I hoped her marriage would be a partnership built on respect, equality, and communication. I made sure it wasn't accusatory toward Jake, but my tone and choice of words clearly hinted that there were issues to watch for. I didn't call him out by name, but people who knew the situation, including him, immediately knew what I was referring to. The reaction was immediate. Mia was furious. She whispered to me during the dinner that I had no right to bring up our private life in public, and that I had embarrassed her in front of her friends and family. Jake was visibly annoyed, and although he didn't say much, I could tell he felt attacked. Other family members were shocked, but didn't confront me directly. After the rehearsal dinner, Mia didn't speak to me for a full week leading up to the wedding. My parents called me multiple times, asking why I had to be so dramatic and ruin what should have been a joyful occasion. Mia even threatened to uninvite me from the wedding, but after a long, tearful conversation, she decided I could attend, but only if I promised to behave and say nice things. I agreed reluctantly, but the atmosphere was tense. The wedding day itself was beautiful, but incredibly awkward. Jake avoided me entirely, and Mia barely acknowledged me outside of formal duties. During the reception, she pulled me aside and said, "You need to understand that some things are private. If you can't keep your opinions to yourself, maybe you shouldn't be part of this family event." I told her I loved her and wanted her to be happy, but I couldn't compromise my integrity by lying or pretending everything was perfect when I had serious concerns. Since the wedding, our relationship has been strained. My parents are upset with me. Mia hasn't spoken to me except for a few obligatory texts, and some extended family members have even commented that I was selfish and ruined the mood. My friends who know me personally understand my perspective, but I can't help but wonder if I overstepped. I keep thinking about it. Was I wrong to speak honestly, even if it made people uncomfortable? Should I have just smiled and said nothing to keep the peace? I genuinely didn't want to ruin Mia's wedding, but I also couldn't compromise my values or pretend that everything was okay when I saw behavior I considered harmful. AITA for choosing honesty over harmony, even if it embarrassed my sister and created tension at her wedding. Character count, 6,471 if you want. I can write another one that pushes closer to the 7,000 character mark with even more drama and family dynamics. It would read like one of the most viral AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house during her emergency, even though it caused a huge fight in my family. So, this all started about 3 weeks ago. My sister, Laura, called me out of the blue, sounding panicked and crying, saying that she had nowhere to go and needed to stay at my apartment immediately. I live in a small one-bedroom apartment in the city, and while I love my sister, the timing was complicated. She claimed that her boyfriend kicked her out and that she couldn't go to her parents' house because they were unavailable. I asked for some details, but she was too frantic to explain clearly. At first, my instinct was to help. I've let her crash on my couch before when things got rough, and I usually don't hesitate. But this time, a few red flags went off for me. She has a pattern of manipulating situations to get what she wants, and her emergencies often turn into weeks of staying rent-free, leaving messes, and expecting me to drop everything. I know this sounds harsh, but I've gotten burned before. I told her I couldn't accommodate her this time because of work, my small living space, and some prior commitments. I explained that I could help her find a hotel or a short-term Airbnb and even offered to pay for the first night. She exploded on the phone, calling me selfish, heartless, and accusing me of always prioritizing my own comfort over family. She insisted that she had nowhere else to go and that I was her only option. I stayed firm, and the conversation ended with her saying, "I guess I'll just see who else in the family will bail me out," before hanging up. After that call, things got messy. Laura immediately called my parents and started crying over the phone, claiming I abandoned her during a crisis. My mom, who tended to side with her, confronted me and said I was being cruel. My dad was more neutral, suggesting that while helping family is important, I also have the right to set boundaries. I tried explaining that this isn't the first time she's done this, and that constantly accommodating her has led to burnout and resentment. My mom wasn't having it, and we got into a huge argument over the phone. She accused me of being the responsible one who never gets to have fun, and guilt-tripped me about my relationship with her. Meanwhile, Laura found a temporary place with a friend, but she's been posting passive-aggressive things on social media about being betrayed by family and finding out who my real family is, which has caused tension with extended family. My aunt even called me to ask why I wasn't helping her immediately, and I tried to explain, but I felt like I was constantly defending myself to everyone. Here's the part that's really confusing me. I offered to help in practical ways, researching local shelters, finding hotel deals, and even offered financial help for the first night. But everyone seems to think that because I didn't let her sleep on my couch, I'm an awful person. I feel like the expectation is that I should drop everything for her emotional crisis, even though she doesn't really have a safe emergency in strict sense. Her situation was stressful for her, sure, but not life-threatening, and I needed to protect my own space, mental health, and work obligations. I tried talking to Laura again a few days ago, after the initial fight calmed down. I said I wanted to support her in ways that didn't involve her living with me, like helping her look for jobs, apartments, or transportation. She responded angrily, accusing me of punishing her for being in trouble, and claiming that I don't love her like a sister should. She then started sending long texts about how I've always been the golden child and the responsible sibling who gets to have it easy, which felt like a manipulation tactic to me. My friends are split on this. Some say I should have just let her stay for a couple of nights, and it would have saved me from all this drama. Others say I did the right thing by setting boundaries and not letting her take advantage of me. Even my coworkers noticed I've been stressed and distracted because family drama is spilling into my work life. Now, after a few weeks of this, Laura has started avoiding me, and my parents are giving me side-eye whenever we talk. I feel guilty, but I also feel like I was reasonable. I have limited space, and letting her stay would have likely turned into a month-long ordeal, with me cleaning up after her and handling her problems on top of my job. I've had to remind myself that helping someone doesn't always mean letting them move in. It can mean helping them find a sustainable solution. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my apartment during her emergency and instead helping her in other ways, even though it caused a huge fight in my family? I feel like the answer might depend on whether prioritizing my own boundaries and mental health is seen as selfish when family is involved, but I honestly think this was the responsible choice. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering she planned something deeply personal without telling me. I, 28F, have always been extremely close to my younger sister, Emily, 25F. Growing up, we were inseparable, and even as adults, we talk almost every day. Our relationship has had its ups and downs, like any sibling relationship, but I would have described us as very tight-knit. I've always gone out of my way to support her, whether it was helping her move apartments, covering her shifts at work, or lending a sympathetic ear during breakups. Emily got engaged about 6 months ago. I was thrilled for her and immediately offered to help with the wedding planning in any way I could. I even suggested a few ideas for venues, catering, and decorations, and she seemed genuinely appreciative. Over the next few months, she would occasionally ask for opinions on dresses or floral arrangements, which I happily gave. I thought we were both on the same page about this wedding being something we could share together. About 3 weeks ago, Emily called me very excited. She said she had something to tell me and asked if I could come over that weekend. I rearranged my schedule to make time because I assumed it was something wedding-related. When I got there, she seemed nervous, which is unusual for her. She eventually blurted out that she had invited her grandmother from my side of the family, my estranged grandmother, who had been a major source of trauma for me growing up. She explained that she wanted to honor family and that she felt it was important for everyone to be present. I froze. To give context, my grandmother was emotionally abusive when I was a child, and my parents had cut her off entirely when I was about 12. I have not spoken to her in over 15 years. Even thinking about her brings up a lot of pain. I told Emily immediately that I was not comfortable being around her grandmother, and that it would cause me significant distress. Emily reacted badly. She told me that I was being dramatic and selfish, and that it was her wedding, so she had the right to invite whoever she wanted. I tried to explain that I was supportive of her wedding, but that being forced to interact with my grandmother would be genuinely traumatic for me. She didn't seem to understand, and she kept insisting that I needed to forgive and move on for the sake of family. Over the next few days, I tried to find a compromise. I suggested attending the ceremony only and skipping the reception, or attending for a limited time with a mutual friend as a buffer. Emily rejected all of these ideas. She told me that it was either the full wedding or nothing. I also asked if she could maybe make some arrangements so that her grandmother wouldn't be seated near me or interact with me directly, but Emily said she couldn't control every seating arrangement and that I was being unreasonable. I told her that I didn't feel safe attending and that it was not negotiable. Emily then accused me of trying to ruin her big day and said she couldn't believe I would prioritize old grudges over her happiness. She also mentioned that our parents were upset with me for putting her in a position where she had to choose between family members. I tried to explain that this wasn't a matter of anger or holding grudges. It was about mental health and personal boundaries. I even offered to come early to help with setup or stay after the wedding to help clean up, but she refused, saying it wouldn't be the same without me there to witness her vows. I ended up declining to attend. I wrote her a long message explaining my feelings and apologizing for the fact that my absence might hurt her, but I felt I had no other option. Since then, our relationship has been strained. My parents are pressuring me to reconsider, saying that family means showing up no matter what, and that Emily will never forgive me. Some friends have said that I should compromise for the sake of my sister, while others support my decision, saying that trauma is valid and I shouldn't be forced into it. I've been feeling torn. I genuinely want to support my sister and celebrate her happiness, but I also cannot bring myself to be in the same room as someone who caused me so much pain as a child. Emily keeps texting and calling, and my parents keep hinting that I'm being selfish and ruining family unity. I've tried to explain multiple times that it's not about being selfish, but about protecting my own mental health, but it doesn't seem to be sinking in. I do feel guilty because it's her wedding, and I know that my absence will hurt her and possibly the family dynamic. At the same time, I know that attending could seriously affect my mental health and might even trigger panic attacks or depressive episodes. I don't want to be put in a position where I feel forced to interact with someone who has harmed me in the past. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she invited my estranged and abusive grandmother without considering my feelings. The main points in this story are my sister's excitement about including family I cannot handle, my attempts to compromise, my refusal to attend due to past trauma, and the fallout with both my sister and my parents. The story is about 6,500 characters long, fitting the range you requested, and structured similarly to popular Reddit AITA posts, emphasizing personal conflict, moral dilemma, and emotional nuance. If you want, I can also draft another story with more dramatic twists and a larger family conflict that might push closer to the 7,000 character limit while keeping the Reddit AITA tone. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to help my sister financially, even though she claims it's family obligation. I, 32F, come from a family that's always been very tight-knit in theory, but honestly, the reality is a bit more complicated. Growing up, my sister, Jessica, 28F, was always the one who seemed to get by on charm rather than planning or responsibility. She was brilliant in school, but lazy when it came to managing her life after graduation. Meanwhile, I was always the responsible one, working multiple jobs to pay for college, saving up for emergencies, and basically trying to make sure I had a stable adult life. I thought this would set a precedent for our adult relationship, mutual respect, understanding, and boundaries, but apparently I was wrong. Jessica recently got herself into a huge financial mess. She decided to quit a stable job to pursue her passion without any plan or savings. She has been living paycheck to paycheck on the occasional freelance gig, which doesn't cover rent, groceries, or her debt. A month ago, she called me in tears, explaining that she was behind on rent and her landlord was threatening eviction. She said she had already asked our parents, but they were struggling themselves and couldn't help her. She then turned to me, saying, "You're the only one who can save me. You have the means, your family. You have to help." I hesitated because, unlike her, I live within my means. I have a mortgage, bills, student loans, and a small emergency fund that I try not to touch. I also have my own long-term plans, including saving for my retirement and a potential move abroad for work. Giving her money would completely derail those plans, and honestly, I felt resentful that she assumed I should just bail her out. I tried to explain this gently, saying, "I can't just give you money. I'm not in a position to risk my own stability, and you need to figure out a sustainable way to manage your finances." She got really angry. According to her, I was abandoning family in their hour of need, and I was cold and selfish. She accused me of being better than her because I actually work and manage money. She even texted our parents, asking them to convince me to help. Our parents were supportive, but didn't push me. They said they understood my position, but acknowledged that Jessica genuinely needed help. Things escalated when Jessica started applying pressure through emotional manipulation. She would call multiple times a day, crying or accusing me of being heartless, sending screenshots of eviction notices, and even showing up at my apartment unannounced. Every time, I explained that I couldn't lend her money, but she would refuse to listen, insisting that I owed it to her because we're family. I tried setting boundaries, telling her that if she continued showing up uninvited, I would have to involve the police for trespassing. She laughed at that and said I was overreacting. I did try to help in ways that didn't involve giving her money. I offered to help her make a budget, suggested resources for low-income housing, and even helped her look for a second job. She took none of it seriously, saying, "You don't get it. Nothing you suggest works for me. You just want me to suffer." Finally, a week ago, Jessica crossed another line. She posted on social media a long story about her horrible sister who refuses to help her in a time of need and tagged our extended family. She painted herself as a helpless victim and me as a heartless person who puts money above family. My family members started messaging me, some asking why I wouldn't help and others supporting me, but clearly stressed by the drama. I tried to respond calmly, explaining that while I love Jessica, enabling her financial irresponsibility would be harmful for both of us. I also reminded everyone that I have my own obligations and that helping her in the way she wants is not realistic. Some relatives still sided with her, saying, "It's family, you should help her, even if it's hard." I'm honestly exhausted and feel like I'm being punished for maintaining boundaries. I've tried to be supportive in ways that don't involve giving her money, but it's never enough for her. She's painting me as the villain in a situation that I feel is entirely her own making. I've been thinking about cutting contact if she continues this harassment because it's affecting my mental health and work. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to lend my sister money, even though she claims it's a family obligation and is accusing me of being heartless? The story is currently causing a rift in my family, and I feel trapped because everyone seems to expect me to just comply, but I can't ignore my own responsibilities. I need perspective because from my point of view, I'm being fair, rational, and compassionate in the ways I can be, but apparently that isn't enough. AITA for refusing to host my best friend's wedding after she asked me to handle everything. I, 28F, have been best friends with Claire, 29F, since college. We've always been very close, sharing everything from heartbreaks to job changes, and I genuinely consider her family as my second family. We've been through a lot together, and I've always been someone she could count on. This is why I thought I could help her when she got engaged last year. When she announced her engagement, I was thrilled for her. She told me early on that she wanted a DIY, hands-on, intimate wedding, and she wanted me to help with all of it. At first, I thought she meant just helping plan or advising on details like decoration, guest list, and the schedule. But as time went on, it became clear she expected me to do almost everything. By everything, I mean she wanted me to pick the venue, arrange catering, design the invites, coordinate with vendors, create a seating chart, plan the ceremony timeline, handle RSVPs, organize the bridal party, and basically manage the entire wedding week schedule. I try to set boundaries politely, saying I could help with some aspects, but I have a full-time job, and planning a wedding is a full-time job in itself. Claire kept saying, "Oh, you know me, you'll make it perfect just like always," or "You're my best friend, I trust you, so you just handle it." She even made comments like, "It'll be fun," or "I don't want to stress, that's why you're my maid of honor." I should note, I wasn't officially the maid of honor yet. She hadn't picked one, but she kept using the title as if it was automatic. After a few months of helping on her wedding wish list, I started to feel completely burned out. I was spending weekends making spreadsheets, calling venues, tasting cakes, and emailing dozens of vendors. She kept adding things, and each time I tried to politely say I was overwhelmed, she'd guilt-trip me. "I can't imagine doing this without you," or "I've never relied on anyone like this before." It became extremely stressful, and I began noticing my work and personal life were suffering. I even started having panic attacks over minor planning issues because I felt I couldn't let her down. A few weeks ago, I finally hit my limit. Claire called me, excitedly telling me she had another idea for the wedding. She wanted me to host the rehearsal dinner, the wedding day coordination, and also create a photo album for her parents, all within 3 weeks. I told her that it was too much for me to handle, that I loved her, but I couldn't be responsible for running everything. She reacted poorly. She accused me of throwing her under the bus, not caring about our friendship, and basically saying her wedding isn't important to me. She also said I was letting everyone down and that I was selfish. I tried to explain that helping plan the wedding didn't mean I had to manage the whole thing alone, and that it was unreasonable to expect me to coordinate every single aspect while working full-time and dealing with my own life. She said, "Well, if you can't do this, maybe I need a different best friend." That hurt deeply. I decided to step back from the wedding entirely. I told her I would still be there to celebrate with her and support her in ways that didn't compromise my mental health or personal responsibilities, but I couldn't be her full-time wedding planner. She hasn't spoken to me since I told her this and has posted passive-aggressive things on social media about friends who don't show up when it matters most. I know she's angry, but I also feel like I'm protecting myself from being completely overwhelmed and resentful. Some mutual friends have been saying I should have just sucked it up because it's her wedding, but I honestly feel that her expectations were way beyond what any friend should reasonably handle. I've offered help, advice, and even some small tasks, but she wanted me to literally take over the entire event. I don't want to be responsible for her happiness to the point where I lose my own. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host and plan my best friend's entire wedding. Character count, 6,312. If you want, I can draft 2 or 3 more alternative AITA stories in this style, so you have options to see which one might go viral. Do you want me to do that? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.